Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei Hyoudou was a Dragon-Nekomata hybrid with a boosted gear? Part 5. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Issei, Kiba, Zenobia and Irina were staying outside the old schoolhouse. 5 minutes ago, a conflict occurred in the orc room. Zenobia wanted to kill Asia for becoming a witch, but Issei stepped up to protect her and the rest. With his action, he challenged Zenobia to a fight, but Kiba appeared in the perfect moment and challenged Zenobia. With that, it was decided Kiba will be fighting Zenobia and Issei Irina. It was an unofficial sparring match between them four. Riaz, Asia, Akeno and Kaneko were staying aside of them. They were just watching at what was happening and what will happen. Come then, let me show you what I learned through the years. Amen. Irina yelled at Issei as she jumped and slashed with her sword against him. Issei-san, watch out. Asia yelled at Issei. Issei just jumped backwards and dodged Irina's attack. He then looked at her. Woo. That was a close one, amazing, Irina. Issei said. Maybe I'll end using my boosted gears to defeat you. Why thank you, Issei-kun. Irina said as she blushed. I trained very hard through the years. The Seker Yuite of this generation, Asia Argento's Twilight Healing and your sword creators Zenobia said to Kiba. All of these sacred gears are truly unique. My ability has its roots in the grudges of those held captive with me, Kiba said as he took his betrayer's sword. It looked like a normal sword, but its blade was black at color. Born as they were killed in the depths of despair. Kiba said and sprinted towards Zenobia, slashing with his sword. Kling Zenobia blocked with her sword. And I'm going to use this ability to shatter the Excaliburs and their wielders. Kiba said as he continued slashing towards Zenobia. Zenobia just dodged and blocked Kiba's attacks. Merely touching a holy sword will hurt a devil. Riaz said as she and the other girls were watching from the side. We're at grave disadvantage. Akeno added. Kling a loud sound of blocking was heard then. As they looked, they saw Issei, blocking Irina's sword with his daggers. The first dagger was blocking the sword from the front and the second from behind. What? Irina asked surprised. How you did that? Fast reflexes. Issei simply replied. He then made a backflip with Irina's sword still caught in his daggers. As he made the backflip, he got Irina in midair. However, as she was thrown in midair, she let go of her sword and landed behind Issei. She then kicked him in the back. Her sword was laying on the ground close to her. She quickly went to it and picked it up. Sorry, Issei-kun. I had to do it. Irina said as she looked at him. Issei just turned around and looked at her. He then brushed the dust off himself. As he was done, he just smiled. Nice one, Irina. You caught me unprepared. He said. But, I have to get serious as well. As Issei said that, his daggers began glowing. Let me show you something that I have learned as well, Irina. Issei said. What this may be? Irina asked as she held her sword in defense. Issei didn't reply. He just stood still. As he stood, he suddenly disappeared. Or that's what Irina thought. He just ran off to somewhere. Huh? Where did he go? Irina said as she started looking around. She then felt something on her back. As she looked, she saw Issei, stabbing her with one of his dagger's handle. Gotcha. She said and tried to kick him. She failed. Issei just sidestepped and stabbed her again, but this time in her waist. This time, however, she felt something when Issei stabbed her. She suddenly felt weaker. What is that? She said as she suddenly started twitching. Senjutsu? I took some of your energy. Issei simply replied and kicked her gently in the legs, making her to fall. Irina, however, didn't give up. As she was holding the katana suddenly changed its look. Instead of a sword, it was now a whip. She then attacked Issei with it. What the? Issei said as he found himself being caught with a whip. Excalibur mimic, did you forget? Irina said as she got on her feet again. Issei-kun, you're strong. I never even thought that you could hold such a power, but I really want to defeat you, so she said and pulled the whip, forcing Issei to come close to him. As he was close to her, she punched him. Issei-senpai. Kaneko yelled as she saw Issei falling on the ground. The whip was still around Issei's body. Irina then started spinning with the whip in her hands. Suddenly, Issei was lifted off the ground and Irina was spinning him right round, like a record. The whip then released him and Issei was sent flying into a tree. As he hit the tree fell off. Issei was laying at the ground again, but he quickly stood up. As he stood up, he looked at Kiba and Zenobia. Kiba was a few meters away of Zenobia and next to him were two swords. The first one had a red blade and the second one had a blue one. Kiba then stabbed his betrayer's sword into the ground and grabbed the red and blue ones. Burn to ashes and be frozen solid. Kiba said as he picked both of the swords up. The sword with the blue blade covered itself with ice and the one with red blade with fire. He then slashed with them towards Zenobia. Weak. She said and slashed at Kiba's swords, breaking them. She then started spinning her sword in her hands and stuck it in the ground. As she did so, the ground suddenly shook from an explosion. The shook was so strong that Irina actually fell on the ground. Smoke and dust rose from Zenovia's location, and as it cleared out, it was visible that below her, there was a huge crater she created with her sword. There's a reason Excalibur Destruction is called the Holy Sword of Destruction. Zenovia said as she took out the sword from the ground. Kiba was just looking at her with wide eyes. Just one of the 7 pieces holds this much power, Kiba quietly said. Destroying all 7 is going to be an uphill battle. Kiba, are you Issei said to himself as he looked at Kiba. That's Zenovia, she just goes and blows the ground away out of nowhere. Irina said as she brushed the dust off her uniform. As she brushed all the dirt, she grabbed the whip and its form changed into katana again. Well then, let's finish this up. She then jumped at Issei with her sword behind her head. Issei just smirked and sheathed his daggers in his belt. The belt then disappeared. As she slashed, Issei dodged and struck her in her hands. As he did so, she dropped her sword. She then fell down and clutched her hands. Sorry Irina, Issei said as he raised a finger. But this is suddenly a green aura covered Issei's body. The end. Issei finally said and touched Irina with his finger. As he did so, she fell on the ground, unable to get up. Issei then went to her holy sword and picked it up. Senjutsu? Irina said while laying on the ground. Yes. I use pretty little however. Issei replied. I guess I won, nah? Issei asked her as he putted an in the end of the sentence. It sounded kinda like cat's meow. Yes, good work, Issei-kun. Irina said. Can you please help me to get up? She asked. Of course. Issei said and raised his finger again. He then touched Irina. Suddenly, her energy was recovered and she was fine. She quickly stood up and took a look at Issei. Amazing, Issei-kun. You're worthy opponent even though you're close to the devils. Irina said. Issei then handed her the sword. Hey, I'm close to everyone. Besides, I'm not a devil. Issei replied. Irina just held the sword and in an instant the sword turned into a thin white ribbon, tying itself around her arm. You told me that already, Issei-kun. I'm happy that I don't have to kill you. Irina said cheerfully. Well, that's just you. I'm not too sure about your companion though, Issei said as he scratched the back of his head. She is just like that. Just give her some time. Irina said. Ai. A loud yelling was suddenly heard. Irina, Issei and the rest turned their heads to the source of the sound and they saw Kiba holding a huge long golden sword in his hands. He then looked at Zenovia angrily. Your holy sword versus my demonic sword, let's see which is more powerful. Kiba said at Zenovia. He then started sprinting towards her. She just stood, not making a move. As Kiba got closer to her, she said only one thing. Though luck. She said and sprinted towards Kiba, hitting him with the axe-like blades on her sword. Kiba suddenly started spitting large amounts of blood as he fell on the ground. As he fell, his demonic sword vanished. He was just laying on the ground while twitching. You're armed with a variety of demonic swords and exceptional agility. Zenovia said as she stood over Kiba. But not only do you lack the power to wield a giant sword, you slow yourself down by doing so. You even lack of ability to make that judgment. After she said that, she turned around and started walking to leave. Stop, Kiba said quietly as he was still laying on the ground. As she heard that, Zenovia stopped. Try cooling off before your next fight, my senior. Zenovia said mockingly as she smirked. Kiba just narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth. That was fun, however. Zenovia said as she picked up her robe from the ground. Hey, we're not done yet. Issei suddenly yelled at Zenovia. You defeated Kiba, but I'm still fine. Won't you try your luck with me? Issei, stop it. Riaz told him. No. Zenovia bluntly replied. My fight was with the knight, not you. However, if you interfere in our mission, I won't hesitate to behead you with my Excalibur. Zenovia said. Why you Issei began but he was interrupted. Issei, I said enough. Riaz interrupted him. It's draw. Anyways, Zenovia-san, thank you for not finishing off my servant with your holy sword. I appreciate it. Well then, Zenovia said as she dressed her robe again. We'll be counting on your cooperation on the aforementioned matter. There's one thing I would like to know. Riaz said. Have you found out which fallen angel stole the holy swords? The leader of the Grigori, Kokabiel, was directly involved. Zenovia replied. As Issei heard the name Kokabiel, he froze solid. He began sweating, his eyes narrowed, his teeth gritted, and his hands balled themselves into fists. Kokabiel, Issei quietly grunted. Bastard out of all, why you? And you were going to fight him alone? Riaz asked Zenovia. Are you trying to kill yourselves? We would rather destroy the holy swords than let them rest in the hands of some fallen angels. Zenovia replied. We know what we're doing. Irina said as she went next to Zenovia. One of us has already been killed. He was a priest who was investigating the city. It was him, Kiba said as he began to stand up while clutching his wound, which was on his belly. It was Fried Zelzen. Freed Issei asked. That stray exorcist? Riaz asked. I happened to witness the scene. Kiba said. He wielded a holy sword. But not just any normal holy sword, he was wielding an Excalibur fragment. A stray exorcist you say? Zenobia asked. So that's who did it. We appreciate the information, but we ask that you don't meddle in our affairs hereafter. Zenobia said and turned around. She then started walking. Goodbye. She said. Hold on, Zenobia. Irina said. Alright, we'll get going now. Issei-kun, thank you for the sparring today. If you want to meet me again, just bell me, okay? Amen. Irina said and ran after Zenobia. Kiba just stood there while gritting his teeth. It was night. After Kiba and Issei were healed by Asia, Kiba tried to leave again. As Riaz saw him, she quickly went to him. Stop right there, Hyoudou. Riaz tried to stop Kiba. As Riaz yelled at Kiba, the rest turned in their direction. I won't let you leave me. You're a Grimoire Knight. Riaz said to Kiba. I'm sorry but you. Kiba replied without turning around to look at her. He then started walking towards the exit. Hyoudou. Riaz tried to stop him, but he just exited the room, slamming the door behind him. Kiba-san, Asia said quietly. Hyoudou, Riaz whispered as her eyes began to tremble. Why? All of them just stood there, shocked from what just happened. It was morning already. Riaz and her whole peerage were already at school. You guys really can't keep these things for yourself, huh? Kiryu said to the perverts Mitsuda and Mathama. Issei and Asia were outside the school, on the school playground. While being there, Mitsuda and Motohama suddenly came and started talking with Asia. Issei didn't do anything to stop the. He was more concerned with Kiba's case. He was thinking of a way to help him. Anyways, as the two perverts were there, talking with Asia, Kiryu suddenly saw the scene, and she went to protect Asia. Kiryu was actually Asia's first friend as she got into Kuo Academy. Besides Issei, Riaz and the others from Riaz's peerage that is. The other girls from the school were also Asia's friends. Anyways, as she saw the two perverts, she just had to interfere and stop them. You guys are impossible cases. Kiryu said to them. I don't actually mind talking with them, Kiryu. Asia said. You heard Aika. She said it herself. Mitsuda yelled at Kiryu. Heh. That's because she doesn't know what type of guys you are. Kiryu said as his glasses flashed. Who are you to mess an hour in her life, Aika? Motohama yelled. Well, you see, I'm while Kiryu, Mitsuda and Motohama were still arguing, Asia looked at Issei. He was standing next to a tree and was watching into the nothingness. Issei-san. Asia tried to call him, but he didn't react. As if he didn't hear her. Well, and if it isn't the perverted show. A blonde boy said. He had light blue eyes and tousled blonde hair. He was wearing the official Kuo Academy uniform. The name of this boy was Genshiro Saji. He was familiar with Issei, since he was the one that welcomed him in the school. Saji was part of the student council, and he was Sona's pawn. Not only that the members of the student council were devils, but they were also ruled by Sona. Anyways, Saji was the one who welcomed Issei in the school and showed him around. They still weren't exactly friends, but they were familiar with each other. As Saji saw Mitsuda and Motohama talking with Asia, he got a little concerned and went to help her. Don't rub your filth off on Asia-san. As Issei heard Saji, he quickly looked in his direction. A plan was already forming in his head. Hello, Saji-san. Asia greeted Saji as she saw him. Hello, Asia-san. How do you do? Saji replied. Shut up. Mitsuda said to Saji. Look who's talking, the secretary of the student council. Motohama added. Saji just smirked and turned around. Well, I shall be going. Don't do anything I wouldn't. Saji said as he left. As he started to leave, Issei looked in his direction with a smile forming on his face. Of course. Issei said to himself. I can ask him. Around 10 meters away from him, the first-year students were getting ready for Jim's class. Kaneko was there as well, and even though she was away, she heard what he said to himself. As she heard it, she widened her eyes a bit and a small smile appeared on her face. She was looking at him for about 5 seconds, but then she resumed her activities and followed her class. As the classes ended, Issei asked of Saji to meet him at the close cafe. As Issei was sitting there waiting for him, he suddenly smelled something. He immediately recognized the smell. It smelled like vanilla and cats. Of course, it was Kaneko. Issei just smirked as he felt her smell, but pretended like he didn't know she was there. After a minute or so, Saji finally showed. Hello, Hyoudou. He said as he neared the table which Issei was seated on. Hey, thanks for coming on such short notice. Issei said. You needn't to worry about it. Saji replied as he raised his hand. So. Hey, are you serious? Saji yelled at Issei after he heard what favor Issei actually wanted. The thing that Issei wanted from Saji was to help him in assisting Irina and Zenobia with their little mission. Please. Issei begged him. I beg you. Issei said as he lowered his head while sitting. You're out of your mind. Saji yelled at him. At that, all the other customers turned to Saji's direction. He then lowered his voice and they all turned back. God knows what Kaichu will do to me once she hears that a holy sword is involved and you're telling me to destroy one? She's going to kill me for sure. Saji said as he gulped. Ria-senpai may have some kindness behind her anger, but when Kaichu gets mad, she really gets mad. I refuse. Kaji said and stood up. He then turned around and started walking towards somewhere. However, he suddenly found out that he was moving his legs, but he wasn't going anywhere. Something was holding him. As he turned around, he saw Kaneko sitting on a table behind him. She was holding his shirt with her hand. Issei stood up and looked at her as well. I knew that you will try something like this, Issei-senpai. She said to Issei. And I knew you'll follow me, Kaneko-chan. Issei replied as he sat next to her. This time however, she didn't sit on his lap. It wasn't because she didn't want to, but because it was public place. Saji sat next to Kaneko as well. Not because he wanted, but because he was forced to. I really have to go. Saji said as his eyes began getting teary. He then tried to stand up, but Kaneko just forced him to sit down again. Cooperate with the church? Kaneko asked. They said they'd rather destroy the swords than have them used by the fallen angels. Issei replied. It seems they would do anything to take them out of the hands of the fallen angels. Kaneko said. Tiba wants to destroy the Excaliburs for vengeance, and the church wants the Excaliburs, even if it means destroying them. Issei said. Their goals may differ, but the end result is the same. So, won't it be better if we cooperate? Besides, normally, I wouldn't attack the church or interfere in their plans, but this is for the sake of a friend. I don't think they would be eager for our help. Kaneko replied. It's worth a try. Issei said. Besides, if this doesn't work, I have a hidden ace up my sleeve. But I don't want to use it yet. It's kinda like Plan Z if everything else fails. What this may be? Kaneko asked curious as she forced Saji to sit down again as he tried to get away. Well, do you promise me you won't tell anybody? Issei asked her. Yes. You have my word. She said. Issei then leaned in close to her and whispered something in her ear. As Issei told her, her eyes widened. How is that even possible? My past is a maze, Kaneko-chan. But, for situations like this, I'm happy that it was like that. Issei replied. But are you sure that this will work? Kaneko asked. 100%. But don't forget not even a word to anybody. Not even Butchu. Issei said. Yes. But, if we want their help, we must find them first. Kaneko said. I'm a little afraid from acting behind Butchu's back, but it's for our friend. Kaneko finished. Yes, that's right. Issei confirmed. And with that, they all stood up and began their searching for Zenobia and Irina. Saji tried to escape again, but Kaneko dragged him with them. Why do I even take part in this? Saji asked as he, Issei and Kaneko were walking around the town. After about 20 meters of being dragged by Kaneko, Saji decided to follow them without resisting. You still have the invincible rook, right? We need all the firepower we can get. Issei said. It won't be easy to find them. I mean, they wouldn't wander off around the city in their white robes. Do stray sheep beg for your blessing? They suddenly heard a voice in front of them. As they looked forward, they saw Irina and Zenobia in their white robes, begging for food. Please take the Lord's roll and give us your blessing. Irina said as she was standing next to Zenobia. Issei just sweat-dropped at the scene. Why they didn't change their clothes at least? Issei thought. I found them. Saji declared as he pointed at them. You don't say. Issei replied. Issei, Kaneko, Saji, Irina and Zenobia were all at the nearby family restaurant, treating Irina and Zenobia with a lunch. Both Irina and Zenobia were eating like they haven't seen food in a month. They ate almost everything that the menu had to order. As they were enjoying their food, Issei and Saji were sweet-dripping at the scene, while Kaneko only looked slightly confused. Wow. They're eating almost as much as me, Issei commented. As both Irina and Zenobia were done with their foods, Zenobia suddenly gritted her teeth. What has this world come to? Zenobia mumbled. To support our faith, we're having to take the help of devils. We've sold our souls to the devils. Irina said as she grabbed her hands one in another. Oh Lord, bless these kind-hearted devils and Issei-kun. She prayed. However, as she finished her prayer, Kaneko and Saji suddenly clutched their heads in pain. Irina, please, you're harming them. Issei said. Believe me, they're not evil. I'm sorry. Force of habit. Irina said. So? Zenobia began. What brings you to us? We want to help you to destroy the Excaliburs. Issei replied. What? Zenobia asked. I understand now. We could probably ask you to destroy one. Seriously? Issei asked excited. The enemy is backed by one of the leaders of the fallen angels, Kokabiel. Zenobia said. Issei started to get upset by the mentioning of Kokabiel's name again. Frankly, the collection of 3 holy swords is too difficult for us. I understand that, but still Irina replied. At best, we have 30% chance of making it out alive. Zenobia said. Didn't we come here to take that chance? Irina asked. Yeah. Zenobia confirmed. We were sent by the higher-ups to sacrifice ourselves, after all. Isn't that the ideal of man of faith? Irina asked. And Irina and Zenobia stared at each other for 5 minutes without even making a noise. Near the fountain of the park where Rainer tried to kill Issei, stood Kiba. Issei, Kaneko, Saji, Irina and Zenobia went to talk with him and tell him about their plan. I see, Kiba said as they told him about their plan. But it's unfortunate that I'm getting the approval to destroy an Excalibur from its wielders. Your words are full of contempt. Zenobia said. I heard that you left the grimoires. Kiba's eyes just narrowed. If you're a stray, I can slay you right here. Zenobia said and took out her sword. That's one idea. Kiba said and a magic circle appeared at his hand, meaning that he was getting ready to summon his sword. Issei however quickly ran in front of both of them and spread his hands, trying to stop them. Calm down. Issei said. Let's not fight before we've even done anything. Your hatred towards the holy sword is understandable. Zenobia said as she lowered her sword. It's an affair that even we abhor. That's why the leader of the project was deemed a heretic and was exiled. His name was Balba Galilei, Irina said. Also known as the Archbishop of Massacre. Balba, Kiba said quietly. That man killed my. He had stray exorcist as his assistant. Zenobia added. Freed, huh? Issei said with a sigh. It's common for exiles to work together. Zenobia said. There's a high chance that Balba has taken a part in this incident. Now I no longer have reason to refuse cooperating with you. Kiba said. That settles our deal, then. Irina exclaimed cheerfully. We will repay you for the meal someday, Sekiruite, Hyoudou Issei. Zenobia said as she began to leave the place. Goodbye, Issei-kun. Irina said as she turned around and both her and Zenobia walked out the place. As they were already far away, Issei just sighed. That worked out great, huh? Issei said as he patted Saji's back. Saji however quickly turned around with angry expression. Break my ass. He replied angrily. Never mind how we could have got chopped up, we could have started a war between the church and the devils. Issei-kun. Kiba suddenly called Issei. I owe you for helping us so many times. Issei said with a smile. Besides, we're friends. What kind of a friend I'll be if I don't help you? I'd like you all to take no part in this. Kiba said bluntly. This is my personal pursuit for vengeance. I'd rather not drag you into it, but we're like a family. Issei argued. We're friends. Am I wrong? Kiba stood like frozen for a second until he spoke up. You're not, but Kiba began, but was interrupted as Issei putted both his hands on Kiba's shoulders. I won't let anyone close to me to go astray. Issei said. I'm not the only one. I'm sure that Butchu will be upset too. You okay with that? Ria's Butchu. Kiba suddenly got sad. Right, the first time I met her it was because of the Holy Sword Project. Kiba said as he started to tell his story. Day after day, they performed experiments on us. With our freedom stripped away, we were not treated as humans. Yet, the belief that we were chosen by God and the hope of becoming a hero in our hearts, we withstood the countless experiments. Kiba was explaining about the experiments. But, not a single one of us could use holy swords. Kiba continued. The experiment was a failure. We were immediately disposed of to hide every detail of the experiments. Spitting blood onto the floor, crawling on all fours to get away, we kept begging for God's help. My friends were half dead. But, with their last breaths, they told me to get away. I ran, but they chased me. Not long after that, I began to feel weaker. I fell to the ground, unable to stand up. I was about to die. Kiba said as few tears fell from his eyes. It was then Kiba continued. I saw her. Butchu. She brought me back to the living. I can't thank her enough for making me part of her family. However, I was able to escape the laboratory only with the help of my friends. That's why I need to use their grudges to power my demonic swords and destroy the Excaliburs. As the only survivor, it's my duty to get vengeance for my friends' deaths. Kiba finished. Crying suddenly, a loud crying was heard. As Issei, Kaneko and Kiba turned at the source of the crying, they saw that it was Saji who was suddenly stopped and turned towards Kiba. Kiba. I didn't know that you'd gone through so much. I don't care what Kaichu does to me. I'll do everything I can to help, Hyoudou. Saji said as he turned to Issei. Really? I'm glad then. Issei said. While Saji was there with Issei, Kaneko got closer to Kiba. I'll also assist you. Kaneko said to Kiba. Kaneko-chan. He looked at her confused. I don't want you to go, Hyoudou-senpai. Kaneko said with her eyes almost teary. Shoot. Kiba said as his eyes got teary. I can't go off alone when you all are not letting me. As Issei heard that, he immediately turned around. So, does that mean, he said. Now that I know who my real enemy is, I'll gladly accept your help. Kiba said. With this said, they were all happy. It was night. Issei, Kaneko, Kiba and Saji had to go to the abandoned church to meet with Irina and Zenobia. While walking towards the church, Issei called Asia and told her that he won't be able to go home this night. Of course, she was concerned, but she said that it's not a problem for her. However, Issei had to call one more person, Azazel. While he could go find him easily or use magic circle, he decided not to worry Kaneko, Kiba and Saji. So he called him with his phone and pretended he is talking with a friend of his in America. "Hello?" Issei called. "Oh, kiddo. How are you doing?" Azazel answered through the phone. Fine, thanks. Listen, can we delay our plans for tonight?" Issei asked. "Why? Did something happen?" Azazel asked. Yes. We got little problems with Kokabiel," Issei said. "Kokabiel?" Azazel asked, surprised. "Yeah," Issei said. "I'm sorry, we'll have to delay it." "Wow, Issei, I can't believe it. I really can't sense Kokabiel. I can't communicate with him either. Do you have idea where he can be?" Azazel asked. "No, none. Will you be able to stop him?" Issei asked him. "I don't think so. If he is a part of what I think, it will be impossible. Keep your eyes open. I'll send an agent in the town. When he sees Kokabiel, he'll bring him before me." Azazel said. "I see. Well, I have to go. Bye." Issei said and hung up the phone. Near the town's river, a man was sitting. He was fishing. It was none other than Azazel himself. He was fishing from the river. As the phone call with Issei ended, he sighed. Well, it looks like I'll be lonely this night," Azazel said to himself. He was never the lonely type. A handsome young man said behind Azazel. The handsome young man was around 17-18 years old, with dark silver hair that reached his neck and blue eyes. He was dressed in a white button-up shirt with black high-collared jacket over it. He had pair of dark maroon pants on and small length of chain on the left side. "So, who was that kid?" "Just an old friend of mine." "Oh, student as well," Azazel said. "Let me ask you something, Azazel," the handsome young man said. "When you said agent, you meant me, right?" "Yes." Azazel confirmed. "Kokabiel tricked me. No wonder that Rainer didn't say anything. Unfortunately, right now I have no connection with him. And as you know, it'll be dangerous for me to fly over the town, looking for him." "Yes, I know," the handsome young man said. "So, what should I do when I find him?" "Bring him here," Azazel said. "I will show him what happens when he acts on his own." "You got it," the young man said and walked off to somewhere. Azazel just continued fishing. "Kokabiel, I wonder how much time will pass and will Issei be able to defeat you?" Azazel said to himself as he smirked. Of course he will. This kid never gives up. If he have the right motivation, that is. Azazel then sighed again. Let's just hope he is not part of them. Azazel said to himself. At the old church, where Issei fought Fried and Rainer, 6 figures stood. 4 of them were dressed into priest's robes, while 2 of them had white hooded robes. These figures were Issei, Kaneko, Irina, Zenobia, Kiba and Saji. Irina and Zenobia had a plan to search the whole city in order to find Fried and the holy swords, but in order for them to make it, they had to be dressed as priests. As they stood there, they began making plans how to proceed. "Okay, listen," Zenobia began. "We won't accomplish much in a large group. Let's split up." "Okay then," Issei said. "We'll search the east side of the city. Then we'll take the west side," Zenobia said. "If you find anything, give Irina a call." "Understood," Kiba said. Hi to Issei." Zenobia then turned to Issei. "I needed to tell you something." "Me?" Issei replied. "Since we owe you for your help, we'll let you know," Zenobia said as she got closer to Issei. "That the white dragon, the Hakuryuku, is awake." Issei just narrowed his eyes and nodded. "I see. Thank you for this information," Issei said. After this small conversation in the church, they all started searching around the city. They were in 2 groups. The first group were Issei, Kaneko, Kiba and Saji. Irina and Zenobia were the second. As Issei and the rest were walking down the street, Issei was looking at the ground, thinking. Kaneko saw him and woke him up from his trance. "Is something wrong, Issei-senpai?" Kaneko asked Issei. As Issei was awakened by his trance, he looked at Kaneko and smiled at her. "No. I was just thinking about what Zenobia said," Issei replied. "Drag told me the same thing 2 days ago." "Drag?" Kaneko asked confused. "Yes. The Welsh dragon," Issei said. "He is the dragon that is sealed in my boosted gears. The dragon that is giving me extra power. I'm the descendant of this dragon," Issei explained. "Then, what about the white dragon?" Kaneko asked. "Well, it's a long story. The Sekuryuite, also known as the Welsh dragon or Drag, and the Hakuryuku, also known as Albion, were fighting in the Great War. They were both slayed by the 3 fractions and sealed inside the boosted gear and the divine dividing. The hosts of the 2 dragons are destined to fight each other. To fight until one of them is dead," Issei explained. Kaneko just stared at him with wide eyes. She got like that when he mentioned that one of the hosts had to die. Anyways, let's focus on the situation we got here now. Issei said. We have to find Fried. Probably he's in some less populated area. Does anyone have an idea where he can be? I just might. Kiba said. As he said that, he started walking towards an area that Issei knew too well. Why the fuck is everything happening there? Issei thought to himself as he, Kaneko and Saji followed Kiba. It was just like how Issei thought. They were in front of the old warehouse where they fought Visor. Can't all these bad guys find a place different than the warehouse where we fought the stray devils? Issei said to himself as he sighed. The stray devil? Saji asked. Yeah. Issei confirmed. We slew them because they lost control over their powers and became monsters. Issei explained and they all walked closer to the warehouse. As they neared it, Kaneko, Kiba and Saji all felt chills. They felt something holy. Issei felt it as well, but he didn't chill at it. Is it just me, or I think we found the rat? Issei asked out loud. He is here. Kiba said as he narrowed his eyes. Issei then looked at the roof of the warehouse. Up there. Issei said as he pointed towards the roof. As they all looked towards the roof, they saw Fried standing there. As he saw that they were looking at him, he quickly jumped and launched himself at Kiba, slashing with his sword. Kiba was fast. He quickly drew his sword from the magic circle and blocked Fried's attack. Fried did a backflip and landed on the top of the warehouse, which wasn't a roof, but was still above Issei and the rest. How y'all doing? Fried asked them as he started dancing around. Nice seeing you again. The stray priest? Saji asked. Fried, you bastard. Issei yelled at Fried. Oh, and if it isn't the dragon and the little slut. Fried replied. Damn, I thought I saw some fresh meat walking around, but it was just a bunch of devils and a dragon cosplaying. Be careful, Hyoudou-senpai. Kaneko warned Kiba. That sword is. Yeah, an Excalibur. Issei said. He then took off his robe and his boosted gears appeared on both his arms. Boost boost. The gauntlets made noise. As Issei took his robe off, Saji and Kaneko did the same. What's this? 4-on-1? Fried asked. It ain't easy being so popular. Don't jump to conclusions. Kiba answered. I'm your only opponent. Kiba said and jumped towards Fried. Well, makes no difference how many devils I gotta fight, Fried said. With my Excalibur it's no problemo. Fried said and jumped out of Kiba's path. As he did so, Kiba stopped and looked around for Fried. Gotcha. Fried said from above Kiba's head. Fried then slashed at Kiba, but Kiba blocked Fried's sword. It's the holy sword of the heavenly flare, known as Excalibur rapidly, known to me as Chopper Sword. Fried said as he attacked Kiba. Kiba then deflected Fried's attack and pushed him away from him. They then started slashing against each other. It turned out that Fried was as fast as Kiba and his night trait didn't give Kiba any advantage. Kaneko and Saji were not even able to follow Fried and Kiba's movements, but for Issei wasn't a problem. After all, he was a lot faster than Kiba. Fried's as fast as Kiba. Kiba doesn't have any advantage at all, Issei said as he watched. This is bad. Kaneko said and took out her cell phone. Just be patient. Fried said as he was fighting with Kiba. I'll pay some attention to you too soon. Damn, Kiba needs some speed. Issei said as he was watching Kiba and Fried's fight. Hyoudou, can't you give him some of your power? I heard that you can transfer power with your sacred gear. Saji asked Issei. I can, but I don't know if that will give him speed boost. No, it'll be better if I go there and help him. Issei said and jumped towards Fried. Fried. As Fried heard his name, he quickly turned around. Take this. Issei said and his boosted gear's fingertips or claws began glowing in red color. He then slashed with them at Fried. Fried barely dodged Issei's attack, but he still dodged it. Oh, time out. Fried yelled. 2-on-1. Unfair. I'll cry. Well, more meat for me. Z. Fried said and jumped at Issei. Issei just smirked. As he smirked, he suddenly disappeared. Too bad, Fried. Issei said as he suddenly appeared behind Fried. But I'm a lot faster than you. Issei said stabbed him with the boosted gear's claws. Fried spitted out some blood, but not too much. Get away from me, you piece of shit. Fried said and kicked Issei in the crotch. That sent Issei flying half a meter back. He then fell on the ground while holding his crotch with both his hands. Ouch. 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 That freaking hurts. Issei yelled at the skies. Are you alright, Issei-senpai? Kaneko asked him. Well, if we ignore the fact that my kingdom is hurting like hell, I'm fine. He replied. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to help Kiba that much. Fried is like a monkey on sugar. Hyoudou, what if I stop a stray priest? Saji asked. Yes, this will be great. Issei said. But, how would you be able to stop him? Just watch. He then extended his left hand. Line. He yelled. Suddenly, on Saji's hand, a black, short metal-like armor appeared. It covered only the upper part of his left hand and the whole thing looked like lizard. Go, line. Saji yelled and suddenly, Saji's sacred gear opened its mouth. As it did so, out of the mouth a long tongue-like line appeared. The line then strapped itself around Fried's leg while he was mid-air, stopping him right there in his tracks. Vritra Saji wields one of Vritra's sacred gears, Issei thought, shocked. But if he doesn't wield them all, he'll suffer from the curse. Take that. Saji said as his sacred gear's tongue was tied around Fried's leg. This is my sacred gear absorption line. You're mine now. Saji yelled and tried to pull Fried down. Fried, however, wasn't even moving. He got his Excalibur and began slashing, trying to cut the tongue. Damn it. Fried was saying while trying to cut the tongue. Dragon artifact. Yeah, good work, Saji. Issei said to Saji. Issei then jumped towards the building, boosting himself 8 times. Boost 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 boost. The boosted gears made noise. Kiba. Issei yelled as he jumped towards Kiba. Kiba stopped in his tracks when he heard Issei's voice. He then turned around to see what was going on. Take. Issei said and touched Kiba's shoulder with one finger. Transfer. The gauntlets made noise. With that, all the boost were sent to Kiba. I gave you some of my strength, Kiba. Issei said as he landed behind Kiba. Use it and defeat Fried. But be quick, it's just boost power. It'll disappear from your body quickly. I see. Thank you, Issei-kun. Kiba said. Your help is greatly appreciated. What? Fried said as he turned at Kiba with anger in his voice. Here I come. Kiba said and stuck his sword in the rooftop he was standing on. Fuck. Let me go. Fried was yelling while he was slashing at Saji's sacred gear's tongue. Sword creator. Kiba yelled, and from both the left and right side of Kiba's stuck in the roof sword, blades started to come out the roof, making their way towards Fried. Fried was just slashing with his sword at Kiba's blades, destroying them. He was doing it over and over, breaking and breaking Kiba's blades. Sword creator. A mysterious voice suddenly said from below. Who's there? Kiba asked as the blades from his sacred gear stopped making their way towards Fried. With the right wielder, that sacred gear can become the most powerful weapon there is. An old man said as he exited the warehouse. He was an old fat man with white from age hair. His wrinkled face had a small white mustache on it. He was wearing glasses. On his head, he was wearing a hat like the ones that the priests were wearing. He was also wearing white priest's robe with golden cross and black outlines embroidered on it. Fried, you're still not used to using the holy sword, are you? Oh, old man Balba. Fried said. What? Kiba's eyes widened. Does that mean he's the one Zenobia was talking about? Issei said, shocked. The leader of the holy sword experiments. Kaneko said with almost emotionless voice. Balba Galilei. Kiba yelled at him. The old fat man, whose name was obviously Balba, turned around to look at Kiba. Indeed. He confirmed. The thing is, old man, this little lizard's tongue got me tied up. Fried said to Balba as he was talking about Saji's sacred gear. Put the power floating within your body into the blade. Balba said Fried. Fried then pulled the blade closer to himself, flowing power into the blade. Fried said and suddenly, his holy sword covered itself in yellow aura. Look out. He's up to something. Issei yelled. Oh, Fried was just looking at his sword. Oh yeah. Fried yelled and lifted the sword above his head, yellow aura covering both Fried and the blade. Fried then slashed again at the tongue that was tied around his leg, and this time he cut it with one single slash. As Fried cut Saji's sacred gear's tongue, Saji fell on the ground. I see. Fried said as he was staring at his holy sword with insane grin. I can take advantage of my holy power and power up. Well, then Fried then turned towards Kiba. Kiba widened his eyes as Fried looked at him. How's about we stain my sword with your blood, huh? Fried said and jumped at Kiba. Kiba quickly pulled his sword out of the rooftop and the blades that were forming around him disappeared. Die. Fried yelled. Kiba moved his sword so he was able to defend himself, but as Fried's sword was close to Kiba's one, Kiba saw that Fried's sword was blocked by another one. Huh? Fried said and looked at the owner of the sword. There, next to Kiba, Zenobia was standing with her sword drawn in front of Kiba, defending him from Fried's holy sword. Zenobia. Issei said surprised. What's up? A voice echoed from the ground behind Saji and Kaneko. As Issei looked there, he saw a person, wearing white robe, running towards Kaneko and Saji. Obviously it was Irina. As she was close to Saji and Kaneko, she quickly removed her robe, undressed her robe, leaving herself only in her battle suit. Should Irina-san? Saji asked as he turned around. Hi. She greeted them cheerfully. We got your call. Why? Saji asked confused. That was the plan. Kaneko replied. Back at the roof, Fried, Kiba and Zenobia were clashing against each other. Kiba and Zenobia were slashing against Fried, but Fried was just blocking both their attacks. Cling the contact of two swords made noise. Zenobia and Fried were standing close to each other with their sword against each other. Blasphemers Fried Zelzin and Balba Galilei Zenobia said while still blocking Fried's attack. In the name of God, I will punish you. Shut up, bitch. Fried replied while he tried to push Zenovia. However, from behind her, Kiba jumped at Fried with his sword in his hands. As Fried saw him, he jumped and made a backflip, avoiding Kiba's attack. Fried then landed next to the fat man named Balba. Fried. Balba said. Huh? Fried asked as he turned to Balba. Your job is to eliminate the church's spies. Balba said. Besides, both of them have holy swords. Balba said as he looked at Zenovia, who was still on the roof with Kiba. Let's retreat for now. Hear you loud and clear. Fried said and pulled something that looked like a pill out of his coat. See you later. He said and threw the pill-like thing on the ground. As the thing broke, a bright light suddenly appeared out of nowhere. As the light faded down, Fried and Balba were nowhere to be found. Damn it, they ran away. Kiba said as both him and Zenovia jumped off the roof and started running towards somewhere. Come on, Irina. Zenovia said as she passed Irina. As Zenovia spoke, Irina immediately followed Zenovia and Kiba. Wait, Kiba. Issei yelled. He was also going to follow them, after all, he was a lot faster than any of them. However, as he jumped off the roof and landed on the ground, he immediately tried to follow them. However, he tripped over something and fell on the ground. Ouch. He said and pushed himself up. He then got back to his feet. Damn, which way did they go? Issei asked out loud. He was just about to follow them by their smell, but something stopped him. Well, more like someone. You're such naughty children. A familiar voice spoke up from behind Issei. As they all turned to the source of the voice, they saw two magic circles. The first one was red and standing in front of it were Rias and Akeno. The second one was blue and standing in front of it were Sona and Tsubaki. But you? Issei said surprised. Haichu? Saji said surprised as well. Would you kindly explain what's going on here, Issei? Rias asked with her eyes closed while smiling. You will explain, Saji. Sona said with angry expression and hands on her hips. Unknown why, when Saji heard that he almost fainted. Inside the old abandoned warehouse, Rias, Akeno, Kaneko and Issei and Son. Tsubaki and Saji were seated across the building, talking. Well, more like getting lecture. Issei and Kaneko were in front of Rias, who was sitting on a turned upside down desk. Sona was sitting on a turned upside down desk, which next to Rias, lecturing Saji. The whole building inside was a mess. Broken glasses, broken furniture, dead plants. Anyways, Rias and Sona were both lecturing their servants. Although we pledged non-intervention to see what was going on, I had Akeno to keep an eye on the two from the church. Rias explained. What? Issei asked. Saji. Sona yelled at Saji, who was bowing to her with his face touching the ground. Yes. He asked as he rose his head to look at Sona. How dare you do such a thing of your own accord? Sona asked Saji. You really are a bad boy. I am sorry Kaichu. Saji said. I see. Rias said as she heard the whole story from Issei. So, Hyoudou went after that man Balba, right? Yes. Issei confirmed. With Irina and Zenovia. I think they'll give us a call if anything happens. Are you sure? Rias asked. With him obsessed with his revenge, I doubt he'll even be able to think about calling us. As Issei heard that, he closed his eyes in a sign of shame. He tried to say, but finally said nothing. Kaneko? Rias then turned to Kaneko. Yes. Kaneko asked. Why are you involved in this? Rias asked her. Kaneko began. I don't want to lose Hyoudou-senpai either. He is like a brother to me. So I guess there's no use crying over the spilled milk, but what you have done may affect the devil's world. Rias said. Are you aware of that? Yes. Issei and Kaneko said together. I'm sorry but you. Issei said. I'm sorry. Kaneko said as well. Slap screamed suddenly, a loud slapping noise and loud screaming were heard. As Issei and Kaneko turned their heads to the source of these noises, they saw Saji, standing on all fours with his behind turned towards Sona. On Sona's right hand, a big magic circle was summoned. You need to be taught a lesson. Sona said and slapped Saji with the magic circle. Saji screamed again and from his eyes, tears were falling. Sign of pain. You won't see mercy. You deserve 1,000 spankings. Sona said to Saji. She's using magic to spank him, Issei asked. That's gotta hurt. Rias then stood up from her seat and went closer to Issei and Kaneko. Issei's left eye began twitching as he thought that Rias will punish them the same way as Sona punished Saji. She however did nothing like that. Instead, she knelt close to them and hugged them. You naughty children. She said as she hugged them. You had me worried sick. After a short while of hugging them, Rias pushed herself off them. Now she said. I knew it was coming, Issei thought. Kaneko? Rias said. Yes. She asked. Since I can't punish Issei because he's a free piece, I'll have to punish you. Rias said to Kaneko. And she was right. Rias was right. She couldn't punish Issei, she's not responsible for his actions, and she may be his master, but he isn't obliged to obey every her order. As long as Issei wasn't going extremely off the rules, she couldn't punish him. However, if he was close to causing another war, he would be punished hardly. Kaneko-chan. Issei thought. Butchu is going to punish Kaneko-chan. Because of me? Yes, Butchu. Kaneko said and turned around, showing her back to Rias. She then knelt and got on all fours with her behind turned towards Rias. Rias then raised her hand. As she raised it, a magic circle appeared on her hand. However, as she was about to hit Kaneko, Issei stepped in to protect her. Butchu, you can't punish Kaneko-chan. Issei said. Issei-senpai. Kaneko said as she looked at him. Kaneko-chan is not guilty. I am. Issei said. She lied, Butchu. She didn't go after Kiba willingly. I made her to do it. If someone needs to be punished, it's me. Issei-senpai, Kaneko thought. Rias then turned towards Kaneko. Is that true, Kaneko? Rias asked. Kaneko kept silent. She looked at Ria's face, then at Issei's. However, as she looked at Issei's face, she saw that he was nodding at her and smiling at her. With that gesture, he was telling her to say yes. She thought for a second, but finally answered. Yes, Butchu. She said. I see. Ria said as the magic circle disappeared. Well then, you won't be punished. But as for you, Issei. Rias turned towards Issei. I must think of something for you, Issei just gulped. Rias thought for about 10 seconds. After that she looked at Issei while smiling. I know. Issei, your punishment is a date with me. As he heard that, Issei sweet-dripped. How was that even a punishment? Simple. She wasn't finished yet. You will take me out on a date and you will treat me with whatever I want the whole night tomorrow. Ria's finished. Is that it? Issei asked. Yes. Ria said cheerfully. It's enough punishment. Okay, Issei said. I'll take you out on a date then, Butchu. Excellent. Ria's clapped her hands. Now then, it's already late. I say that we should head home already. Ria's then turned at Sona. Sona, you still have business here, don't you? Yes. Sona nodded. Saji's punishment is not over yet. She said and slapped him again. Ouch. Issei said. Well, good luck, Saji. After that, Rias, Akeno, Kaneko and Issei started walking home. While Rias and Akeno were more forward than Kaneko and Issei, Kaneko took the initiative and got a little closer to Issei. Issei-senpai, Kaneko called Issei quietly. Issei looked at her and smiled at her. What is it, Kaneko-chan? He asked. Thank you, she said as she blushed. What for? Issei asked. For saving me from Butchu's punishment. Kaneko replied. Don't worry about it. After all, this is what the guys should be doing, isn't it? Issei said. But, you lied to Butchu and now you're punished because of me, Kaneko said as she looked at the ground ashamed. The thing she gave me wasn't a punishment, Kaneko-chan. Issei said as he smiled. The thing she wants of me is a date. At the word date, Kaneko got a little sad. Sad that Rias was trying to steal Issei away from her. But, it's just between master and sort of a servant. So, yeah, anyways, you're not guilty of this, Kaneko-chan. Don't worry. Issei said. After that, both he and Kaneko continued walking after Rias and Akeno. 5 minutes later, Akeno and Kaneko went their separate ways. Rias and Issei continued walking towards Issei's house. Why was Rias walking towards his house, you ask? Well, because after the raiding game with Riser, she moved in with him. Issei didn't mind it anyways. As both of them neared the door of the house, the door slightly opened from the inside. Out of it, Asia's head showed. Welcome home. She welcomed them and opened the door to the fullest, only to reveal herself to them. As Issei saw her, his nose suddenly started bleeding. In front of him was Asia, who was wearing a plain white apron. But this wasn't the weird part. The weird part was that she had nothing else but the apron. She was completely naked under the apron. You must be tired after working so late. I'll make dinner right away. As she said that, they all entered the house. As they entered, Issei asked only one thing. Asia, what's with that getup? Issei asked her as he covered his nose. My classmate Kiryuika-san told me that this is the best way to soothe a tired gentleman. Asia explained. That perverted girl with the glasses. Issei thought. I see. That's a great idea. Ria said. Asia, you have a potential to become a succubus. You're very seductive. No. Asia said. I don't want to be that type of a devil. Even if you don't want to, the things I'm saying are still truth, Asia. Ria said. Well then, it will be better if I get dressed in the same as you, Asia. Issei is pretty tired. As she said that, she took off her shoes and started walking towards the kitchen. As she passed near Asia, however, she whispered something in her ear. You were a step ahead of me this time. Good job. She said and went to the kitchen. What the hell is going on? Issei asked himself. Issei-san, Asia said. Am I causing you trouble? She asked him with watery eyes. No, you look great. Issei replied. Let's just get that straight. And even if those people from the church come here again, I'll keep you safe. If there's anything that scares you, I'll get rid of it. Issei-san, Asia said with little tears in her eyes. I don't regret becoming a devil. Even though I can't mention Lord's name, there are a lot of people I love very much. But you, all the other members, my friends at school, and you, Issei-san. You're all very precious to me. I never want to say goodbye. I never want to be alone again. Asia said and hugged Issei surprisingly. Issei blushed at that sudden act from Asia and from the view of her bare back and butt. He was trying to control his hand so he won't grope her or do anything inappropriate to her. Even if Issei wasn't massive pervert, he still was perverted. Just like everyone. He however was normally perverted. Not massively, but normally. As he was trying hard not to touch Asia's butt, Issei suddenly heard a voice. Issei. He then shot his head at the source of the voice and saw Ria's. Ah, but you. I didn't do anything, he tried to explain, but then he took a better look at Ria's. She was wearing a pink apron with nothing beneath it. Just like Asia. How's that? She asked. Issei however wasn't able to respond. Why? Because he fainted. The blood he lost from his nosebleed was too much. As it's already late, we'll make something quick and easy. Ria said as she and Asia were in Issei's kitchen. Issei was in the living room on the couch, reading a magazine. Since his living room and the kitchen were connected, he was able to see what was going on there. He was pretending to read, but he was actually looking at Ria's and Asia while blushing deeply. It took him a while to wake up after his nosebleed, but he was fine now. Kind of. Man, if my parents were here and were seeing this, they would faint. That's for sure. Issei thought as he was looking at them. The next day came. As always, Issei, Asia and Ria's went to school, but nothing too interesting happened. As their classes were over, Issei and Asia went to the clubroom. As they went there, they saw Ria sitting on one of the couches with a Keno beside her. Kaneko was sitting on the other couch, eating sweets. As Issei and Asia entered the room, they greeted all the residents inside. Hi. Issei greeted them. Ah, Issei, Asia. You're here. Ria said. She then putted saddened expression. Any word from Kiba? No, Issei replied sad as well. We haven't heard a word from him since last night. I thought that he could finish that stray exorcist alongside those two swordsmen, but Ria said. Was it wrong of me to do this? Issei asked as he looked at the ground. Kaneko did the same thing. We can't simply wait for him to contact us. Akeno said. That's why we sent our familiars to search the area. As Akeno said that, Riaz stood up from the couch. I just received news from my familiar. Riaz said. My familiar has found something. Akeno, prepare the magic circle. Yes, but you. Akeno said and created a magic circle. As she created it, her, Riaz and the rest stepped inside it and they were teleported to a secluded area in the upper part of the town. As they were teleported to the secluded area, they saw two girls. The first one was a girl with short black hair, which for some reason was made in the shape of bad. She was wearing short red dress and she had red lipstick on. Issei recognized her as the girl that gave him the summoning flyer on his first date with Umarainer. But this girl was also Ria's familiar in human form. However, she was holding another girl in her hands. As Issei looked down, his eyes widened in shock. There, in the Batgirl's hands was a girl with chestnut hair, tied in twin ponytails on both the left and right side of her head. She was barely conscious and she was wearing a black leather battlesuit. Her battlesuit was torn on quite a lot of places. The only parts where the suit wasn't torn were the parts that covered her legs and her womanhood. Issei immediately recognized this girl. This was Irina. Irina. Issei yelled and ran over to check on her. As he knelt down to her and saw that her breathing was very slow, he calmed down, but very little. Asia. Issei called Asia. Yes. Asia said and immediately ran off to Irina, kneeling next to her, as green light engulfed Asia's hands, meaning that Asia was using her twilight healing to heal Irina's wounds. This however didn't recharge the energy Irina had lost. Who would do such a thing? Asia asked shocked. Irina, what happened? Issei asked her. As Irina heard Issei's voice, she opened her eyes slightly. Where are Kiba and Zenobia? They ran. Irina replied weakly. Ran? Issei asked. I just didn't make. She struggled to talk. Don't talk. Asia said. He's incredibly strong. Irina said quietly. He? Issei asked. Watch out, Irina said, as she fell unconscious. Irina. Issei tried to wake her up, but nothing happened. Suddenly a blue magic circle appeared in front of Issei. Out of it, Sona, Tsubaki and Saji came. Sona, you came. Riaz said. Sona then got closer to Irina. Why wouldn't I come after you called us? Sona said and knelt down next to Irina. She's badly hurt. Yes. Asia said. Asia's twilight healing isn't able to get her back the energy she lost. Senjutsu would work, but I don't know if I will be able to do it. Issei said. Don't worry. My house has a healing room. Sona said. She then turned at Tsubaki. Tsubaki. Right away. Tsubaki said and got Irina in her hands. Take care of her. Sona said as she stood up. Yes ma'am. Tsubaki replied and opened magic circle, teleporting herself and Irina to Sona house. Issei and Asia then stood up. Well then, I guess the Kiba and Zenobia are alright. Issei said. He then turned to Saji. How's your butt, Saji? He asked him. Still hurts a bit, but I'll be fine. Saji replied. Sorry for all this, Saji. Issei said as he scratched the back of his head. I don't understand what's going on here. Saji said. Don't worry. Issei replied. We're as clueless as you. As Issei said that, him and all the rest felt something. Everyone besides Issei suddenly got chills, meaning that something holy was near them. Suddenly, from behind the nearby tree, a familiar figure appeared. It was the stray priest, Fried. Yo, yo, yo. Fried said as he got in front of them. Looks like everyone took the bait, doesn't it? How do you do, devil shits? Fried said. Fried. Issei said as he got his hands balled into fists. You again. Oh would you look at that. Fried said as he looked at Asia and smirked evilly. And if it isn't the traitor, Asia-chan. Enjoying your life as a devil shit? Fried asked her as he started dancing around. Hey you. Lay a finger on Asia or any of my friends, and I'll fucking kill you. Issei yelled and summoned his boosted gears. As he did that, everyone got into battle stance, getting ready to attack Fried. Whoa. Time out. Time out. Fried said. Gotta chat with that retard for a sec. As he said that, Riaz got somewhat calmer. Chat? Riaz asked him. Yeah. Fried said as he suddenly smiled like a madman. My boss wants to. He then looked up in the sky. As he did so, the sky changed. Instead of the blue sky that was hovering over the town, now there was a dark sky, consisting all the colors of the rainbow, constantly changing themselves. As Riaz, Sona and the rest looked up, they saw a figure hovering over them. A fallen angel. Kaneko said with a hint of disgust in her voice. Kokabiel Issei gritted his teeth and clenched his hands into fists. He has 10 wings. He is a leader. Akeno said as she was looking at Kokabiel. He had pale face, long ears that looked like elf's ones, glowing red eyes and long, sharp teeth. He had long black hair and he was wearing purple long-sleeved robe. He also had 10 blackbird-like wings. We never met, have we, daughter of Gremory? Kokabiel said Riaz. My name is Kokabiel. Riaz just smirked and took a few steps forward. Good day to you, fallen angel leader. Riaz replied. My name is Riaz Gremory. What beautiful crimson hair. Kokabiel said. You look just like your brother, Xerozzuro, the Crimson Satan. Just the thought of him makes me sick. So, what exactly might the purpose of this meeting be? Riaz asked. It's uncommon for a leader to come out for a chat. I'd like to have some fun in the area around Kuo Academy, your headquarters in the city. Kokabiel replied. Our academy, Riaz asked. If I do, Xerozzuro will have to come help. Kokabiel said. Isn't that right? That's only going to cause another war between God, the fallen angels and the devils. Riaz said. As he heard that, Kokabiel laughed. I expected Michael to come after the Excaliburs, but all he sent was 1 weak exorcist and 2 girls with holy swords. Kokabiel said. It's not enough. It's far from enough. Then your goal right from the start has been to begin another war? Riaz asked. That's right. Kokabiel confirmed. That's dead right. I couldn't resist my boredom after the last 3-way war. Neither Azazel nor Shimhaza wanted another war. Typical for Azazel-sama Issei thought. Azazel wasn't just against the war. Kokabiel confirmed. He started collecting these sacred gear things and doing research on them. I don't care who's doing what. Get the hell out of here right now, Kokabiel. Issei yelled at Kokabiel. Issei. Riaz turned to him. He could eradicate you with one. I have some unfinished business with him, but you. Issei interrupted her. Are you here because I ashamed you in front of so many people, Kokabiel? Are you here because you want to defeat me? Ha. The fallen angels, God and the devils are teetering on the brink of the war. Kokabiel said. That means one small nudge from me can tip them over the edge. That's why I'm here. To cause another war. You're completely addicted to war. Riaz said. I'm going to have you, devils, start it this time. Kokabiel said. Sister of Lucifer, Riaz Gremory, and sister of Leviathan, Sona Sitri. At the mention of their names, Riaz and Sona narrowed their eyes. Your place of learning should be chock full of magical power, able to cause immense chaos. It's the perfect place for war. He's insane. Issei said. More insane than I remember him. Fried then laughed like a madman. Don't you love how my boss is so fucked up? Fried asked. He's why I'm so enthusiastic about this. Fried said and unbuttoned his coat. He then showed the inside of it. Inside the coat, there were 2 Excaliburs and in his hand there were 2 more. Tied on his left hand was the ribbon that Irina was wearing before. Excaliburs? So much? Issei asked. Of course, indubitably, I can use all of them. I'm invincible. Fried said with his tongue sticking out. Ah, this holy sword of mimicry, Excalibur mimic though I got it from the girl with the twin ponytails. Let's begin the war, sister of Satan Surzich's Lucifer, Rhea's Gremory. Kokabiel yelled. He then created a magic circle in front of him. Out of it, countless light spears started raining. They were targeting Rhea's and her peerage and Sona. Everybody, run. Rhea said as she created a barrier. The barrier blocked most of the spears, but within moments, Kokabiel and Freed disappeared and the sky got back to normal. Where did they go? Saji asked. He went that way. Kaneko said as she pointed towards Kuo Academy while she was on a tree branch. To Kuo Academy. This bitch Issei said as he was few branches higher than Kaneko. She looked up at him with surprise. As Issei saw that Kaneko was staring at him, he chuckled a little. Well, I'm a Nekomata too, remember? Even though I'm partly one anyways, we have to stop him. That's right. Rhea said. A fallen angel with his power could easily eradicate the whole city. Issei jumped down from the tree and looked over at the school's direction. He then narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth. That bastard, Issei said. I'm not going to let you, do you hear me, Kokabiel? Issei yelled at the sky. Issei, everyone, we're heading to our academy. Rhea said and started walking towards the academy. Everyone else followed her. At Kuo Academy's playground, a golden magic circle appeared. In the middle of it, the fat man, Balba, was standing. Around him were the 4 holy swords that Freed had. He was making kind of a ritual to fuse them together. Behold. At last, as Balba said that, from the middle of the magic circle, a beam was shot in the sky. Oh no, Zenobia said as she saw the beam, while standing on the roof of the abandoned church. My dream will come true. Balba said as the swords around him began to disappear. As they started to disappear, over him another sword formed, meaning that Balba was fusing the sword successfully. Kokabiel was hovering over Balba in his throne, smirking evilly and waiting for Issei and the rest. The battle would begin shortly. End of the part 5. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.